This is once again going to be another quick intro. I said I was going to change them to episodes. They were already episodes, so yeah, but this is part 2. Let's continue.
Alright, I think that's everything I need. Yona looked up from her list. Bag length with odds and ends that she had collected during her trip. You have the incense, right? The last thing we need is to have those guys see us return without it. Yep, you glared down to the small parcel you had clenched in your hand. It was the same as the normal kept in his room, and currently still had a plenty of supply of it. Surely he wouldn't notice this small addition to the stockpile. Today had been the best in your memory to date. Maybe it was because you had been living mercilessly for so long, but you couldn't remember the last time you had such a fun day. Yona had brought along a stash of her own coins that she had saved, collecting them from the clothes of the guests and main house members. Small amounts that wouldn't be noticed. And with that, she bought you street food of the kinds that you would never have under Chizaki's watch. While the food in the house was the highest caliber fit to their complex taste, in it plain and compared to this, it was messy, most likely not sanitary. But oh, did it taste fantastic. It tasted like freedom. Currently, you are licking the last of the sweet taste, similar to honeycomb. Your fingertips intent on enjoying every last crumb. Chizaki would be completely disgusted with the behavior, not that he hardly allowed you to have sweets in the first place. Yona looked over your shoulder, her gaze sweeping the area before grabbing your arm and pulling you sharply into an alleyway. Yona, what are you doing? She ignored you, continuing to pull you down the alleyway, processively getting more and more broken down, to the point where the homes turned into nothing more than tents pinned along the walls, figures dipping in and out of the shadows in the afternoon sun. Finally, Yona let up, allowing you to slow to a stop in front of one of those tents. It was the same as the others, made of patchwork of different fabrics and held up with twine and scrapped pieces of wood. The only difference was the number of odd carvings and symbols etched into the wood holding it up. And painted onto the fabric was a dark stain. You hoped it was just ink. Before you could question her, Yona was already pulling you inside. There the air was thick and suffocating, drenched in the scent of incense, just like the kind you currently held on to. It was surprisingly roomy, judging from what it looked like on the outside. It had held a number of shelves lined with books and jars filled with things you couldn't even begin to guess were filled with instead. With that, a single lantern sat on the table in the center of the room, lit by what looked like some type of plant that had its own bone inside. Zenru, this is the one I was telling you about. You turned to Yona questioningly, only to jump at a sharp unfold itself from the shadows. A mortal, you had really bad luck, don't you, dear? As they came closer into the light, you could see their back was hunched with age, covered with a cloth that covered from head to toe. Small holes in the top allowed pointy ears to poke through, but in was their eyes. They were really captured you, a crystallized blue that seemed to swirl, holding a universe of stars within them in some hypothetical way Chizaki did. But instead of that fear you felt with him, all that you got from them was an overwhelming sense of comfort, like they were a warm fire in the middle of a blizzard. Ignorance was traded for vision. What could have seen the universe? For you, you find your way here. You would have considered yourself among the most unfortunate, but to gain the attention of an Oni And such one as Chizaki himself, well, I would say you're the first to experience. I don't understand. You turned to Yona, who only stared back. Why did you bring me here? They can help you. Help you? Help you how? As far as you knew, there were no one who could help you with your situation, not permanently at least. Chizaki was too powerful for anyone to cross and get away with. You found a gateway that day you were here. Oh, the day you came here. The hunched yokai had begun moving around the room, riffling through the number of boxes and drawers, pulling odds and ends out before returning to the center and disposing their collection. A shard of cracked glass lay in the center, its surface on unnaturally inky black. But the longer you stared at it, the more you began seeing flashes of images, slowly forming a sense you recognized all too well. Normally, they are all hidden, but some nights spots are weak. They allowed conversations and open doors, rested shut the rest of the time. They can be the worst of prisons. Gazing eyes caught your eye, fixing you with no true force, and pinning you like a bug to a wall. Slowly you realized what they were implying. Black paling. You shook your head. No, there's no way. Even if I was able to get away from him through one of these magical doors, he would come after me. If there's one thing I've learned since serving him, it's that he doesn't let go. Ever. You already knew how angry he got when you were able to get just in the gardens. But if you were to escape back to the mortal realm, and he were then to find you, there wouldn't be anything left for him to make an example of the others with. For your words, the figure only shook their head, beaming currently like a chime in the breeze. It reminded you of the summers spent with your grandparents, and you realized how much the person before you reminded you of them, warm, calm, and maybe a bit distant at times, but more kind than one would think of. It is near impossible for any to break through these pathways normally, but even more so to control where they come out. Not even Chizaki himself would be able to do in 1,000 years. It would take a very strong Oni to do so. An ancient one. Still, you shake your head, unable to believe that there was a way to escape this nightmare. You cannot stay here. They grabbed your hand, nearly pulling you over the table, and you have to catch yourself as they pull you down to their height. A pet you are not, and mortal you must remain, else your suffering will be eternal. You prick at your own skin makes you whelp. Oh, a prick of your own skin makes you whelp, jumping away and pulling your hand back to inspect the wound. Despite the throbbing pain, there was a little more than a drop of blood in its place. Another, and sitting directly on the end of the needle they now hold, balancing relentlessly before being deposited onto a small stone they had been pulled out of the drawers earlier. It traveled, following along cloves instead of the naked eye, a complex pattern of swirls and circles, coming around and round until every last groove was filled before sinking into the stone. A moment later, it began to elate a light green glow, turquoise almost, that started softly but grew brighter until it was blinding, forcing you to shield your eyes and look away as your eyes began to water. It was with your eyes still closed that you felt a small object being pushed onto your hand. Cold and smooth, you lowered your arm to see the same stone that the yokai just held, now back to normal, and back to nothing other than an ordinary rock, no glowing or strange markings. The portal tends to move around depending on the lunar cycle of the mortal realm, making it hard to find them here. This will help you find the one to take you home. Home? The word is almost as foreign as you could comprehend. It had only been a few months here, but who knows if time moved the same way in both worlds. Your throat clogs your emotion. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You must get back soon as possible. The blood moon is tomorrow. Is one of the only times that there is as sure that there will be a door open on this side. You nearly choke. Tomorrow? So soon? It really seems like they were cutting it close. And something tells you messing it up would have catastrophic results. As if reading your mind, Yona speaks up for the first time since entering. It's the only time things have lined up. Chizaki doesn't let you go out of his sight, and I had to have you here for the tracker seal to work. But how do you know? He could be back at any time. We don't know where he went. Yona sighs, crossing her arms and closing her eyes, and thought, we might not know where he went, but we should still have time. We can't take you, which means he went to the borderlands. Those are a minimum of 4 days to travel. The only way he could get back so soon if he cut through the shadows. And he might hate that place even more than he hates others touching him. Not to mention, we don't know how long the meeting will take. At her words, you realized that it was actually possible. You could go home, and you would never have to see that horrid creatures again. Never have to wait on him hand and foot, tolerating his absence and mental torture. Turning back to the kind yokai, you dropped your knees, forehead to the ground as you kneeled. Think nothing of it. There is too much bad blood between yokai and humans, and it is a shame not to let one bad egg spoil the batch. Besides, I've had a bone to pick with that pesky yokai Oni for centuries now. They laughed, booming the surprisingly deep, curling much further than you would have thought from their small body. Come on. Yona pulls her up, dragging her up and out of the tent, through the alleyway and back to the estate, just as she had earlier. By this time, streetlights were being dim, casting a warm glow over the glowing night market that you might have stopped and enjoy before different circumstances. You know, I'm really going to miss you. Her admission catches you by surprise, though when you glance over, she's already busying herself with a bag of sweets she had purchased earlier, digging through her favorite pieces. You made the place a little less boring, and it was nice to have someone that actually listened to me when I told them to do something. Aww, have I grown on you that much? What are you going to do without me now? Surely your workload will be increased once again. Laughing, you lightly jab her in the ribs, making her laugh with a small yelp. Maybe we can find a way for you to come visit me in my world. I can show you all the treats at the night market there. As if I can barely handle the stench of one human alone. A whole crowd of them? No, thank you. The estate comes into view, and you lapse back into silence. The 2 guards from earlier are there glancing as you passed back through the gates, to which you respond by exactly waving the incense above your head, proving that you weren't up to anything suspicious. After having out and be about all day, bringing back inside was nearly suffocating, and you could already feel yourself inching to get back out there once for all. That night you slept back to back with Yona, admiring keeping you awake, as well as your empty stomach. It had been too late for dinner when you came back, and lunch with Yona had been hours earlier. Living under Chizaki was being and being fed his scraps and had you spoiled. But soon you would be able to eat whatever you felt hungry. What would be your first meal when you get back? Maybe some tosakiyu from the shop just a block from your house. Or maybe you could convince your mom to make you yochiori or even curry rice. Oh, no one else in your family particularly liked it, which was such a shame because hers was the best, and you had never that you have ever tasted, and was normally only made of special occasions like your birthday or the first and last day of school. The thought made you practically drool, soothing your worries to the point you eventually able to fall asleep, your dreams of family dinners only ruined when Yona woke you up in the morning and increased as possible. You packed your things in a way that would be easily to grab and hide under your clothes. There was a new spring in your step, which the others didn't fail to comment on, yet you easily explained it was with the lack of overwhelming pressure, and lack of the Chizaki's overwhelming pressure, and they knew only too well that you meant. Speaking of what completely skipped cleaning the man's room, you been there to punish, and there was no reason for you to accept yourself now. When you would undoubtedly be answering a plethora of questions when you returned home, to be honest, you still didn't know what you would tell them, even if your traitorous friends backed your story of ghosts and odd happenings at the shrine, being transported to a realm full of yokai and unbelieving to anyone, especially the authorities. Maybe you should say that you were kidnapped? You mulled over the idea as you walked back to the servants' quarters, balancing both yours and Yona's dinners in your hand. She had headed back to get your bed set up, and maybe sure you had enough sheets, snuck into the laundry room to stuff under your blankets to keep anyone from looking for you tonight. The plan was to wait until everyone fell asleep, and then sneak off to find the portal. Once you were safely across, Yona would go back and cover for you as long as she could. Undoubtedly, the others would be blamed for your escape, though chances are Chizaki would think it was the help of a higher-ranking member of the house. Plenty had been disrated with their constant presence and pleasurevins, and it wouldn't be too far. And it wouldn't be too far to think one would help you escape or even kill you and hide the evidence with Chizaki gone. Maybe they would use it to their advantage and get rid of one of the most abusive household members. Footsteps running down the hall drew your attention, and you looked up to see Yona making her way towards you, and a quite fast clip. Hey, you, I got our no time! She doesn't even stop, grabbing you as she passes and pulls you down the hall, leaving your food in a pile in the middle of the hall. Making it to the room, she grabs your bundle from under the loose floorboard you had found, tossing it your way and barely giving you time to catch it before you were on the move again. Yona, what's going on? She doesn't stop, pulling you and ignoring the shouts of the people. She shoves out of the way and bowls over in her mad dash to the upper levels. Chizaki's back. Her words send a cold shiver down your spine, and your legs freeze, making you tremble. If Yona hadn't been so strong, you would have fallen completely. Instead, she was simply yanking you back up, practically carrying you as she even goes faster. I thought you said he wouldn't be back for days. I know what I said, but he's here now. I don't know why or how, but he is. The guard spotted his progress only a few minutes out, and the greeting party has already been sent out. She finally strides to a stop at a split in the hall, breaking back expectantly, and you realize she's waiting for your directions to the portal now. Pulling out the charm, you see that it is glowing lightly once again. It turns to you point it down. Each of every hall, your stomach erupting into butterflies as it glows brighter to the one leading left. Come on, Once again, you're off, using the stone as a guide through the vast of halls and doors. But by the time you reach the third floor's east wing, you're out of breath and nearly blinded by how bright the glow is now. Here, pulling the door open, identically to every other in the building, you are shocked to what you see. It was the same room that you had arrived in, filled with crates and spared storage. In the middle of it all, bathed in tinted light from the moon outside, stood the cursed Ori gate that you had gone here. This is it. You can finally go back. Yona is just out of breath as you are, panting, as she looks back at you. Her eyes, all four, shine with an emotion you can't identify a dame. Before you realize, you're pulling into a hug, wrapping your arms tightly around her, you bury your face into her shoulder, now faced with the reality of losing the only person who cared for you in this rotten place, the person who had put their neck out to help you escape. What if you come with me? What? She pulled back, face crumpled in confusion. We can find another shrine for you to live at. One all of yourself. I can even make you one. I can bring you all my friends there to give you offerings. She paused, as if considering the option. Yona could come back with you. You could make sure she was safe and cared for, returning the favor from. Your eyes widen, Yona's mirroring the actions as the chill settled both of you. Goosebumps erupt over your skin as every hair stands on end. It feels as if every ounce of the air has been snapped from the building and replaced with water, choking you and stealing the erupt of your thought. The air itself seemed to go dark, and a single crack of the ancient wood floors. It's all the warning you got before the door's thrown open. Well, open, be it the wrong term. Instead, it's busted open, slippering into millions of pieces. Yona raises her arms, protecting you from the majority of the wood projectors. But a piece still managed to make it past this and slice your cheek, making you, as your blood begins to well and flow. You. The voice is wrapped and distorted, as if it was run through some filter for a punk rock band. It was as if dozens of voices were speaking at once, tone delayed down to the absolute lowest it could go, digging into your sense like razor blades. When Yona finally moves her arm, you can catch sight of the attacker, and it's one you'll never forget. Chizaki stood in now shattered doorway, though you would be hard-pressed to recognize him. His clothes were disheveled and ripped in small areas, mimicking the state of his hair, which was normally well-kept and neat, now plastered over his forehead and sticked up in odd angles. But what was truly terrifying was his face. Chizaki nearly let anything fall past his mask, apart from the occasional slip of annoyance. But now, it was the current that had been ripped away. His eyes were wide, golden irises blazing around pupils. That was a little more than slits. His teeth were bare and snarled, canines shining in the dull red tint of the room, and looked ready to rip through more than the delicate fish meals he normally had for dinner. His eyes are locked onto your form with nothing short of a murderous intent, and it's all the warning you could have before he pounces. Get back here. Yona retracts in the millisecond it takes him to cross the hallway across the room, interrupting him and causing them both to clash onto the ground. At the same moment she jumped, she had pushed you back, using your body as a springboard to propel herself towards the Oni, while you were thrown towards the gate, which only glowing the same bright light your stone held. Yona! Oh shit, that was loud, I'm sorry. You reached out to your friend, though there's nothing you can do as the darkness reaches from within the wooden pillars, pulling you back towards them while your friend is locked in battle with her own master. Calling it a battle might be generous, however, as it was more of a thrashing than anything, like a person staggering away an annoying bug. Swatting away an annoying bug. She was no match for him, and you all knew too. Yet she still continued to thrash and struggle, latching onto his form and embellishing him from getting to your disappearing form. She doesn't let go, despite the way she cries in pain with each blow. Not even Chizaki delivers a swift blow, serving both of her right arms from her body, leaving nothing but a pool of blood in their wake. She only wraps her legs in one spot, burying her face into the back to protect her neck. That's it. The last view you have of your friend and protector, saturating in her own blood, and crying as she holds back the demon of many nightmares, while the only thing you can do is cry, sob, and scream as your world once again fades to black. You look beautiful. You can only nod, doing your best to smile as your mother places a hand on your arm as you make your way up the stairs. The small red protection charm she had given you earlier remains tucked in the belt of your kimono, and you can't help the way your hand drifts over it, as if making sure it was still there. In all honesty, you could wear 1,000 more of them if you could. Ever since your return, you had been jumpy every little thing, refusing to turn the lights in your room off, and staying awake all the time until you dropped from exhaustion. While your parents may have found it ridiculous for you to be so fearful every little thing, even sleeping in your own room after a train of nightmares plagued you every night after night, reliving the final moments of your escape, and unable to get the image of Yona being torn apart from your mind. They said nothing, only continuing to support you and try to take their time with little steps. Though, who would blame you for wariness after your kidnapping, and for 6 months nonetheless? When you had returned home, back in the bittered and run-down shrine that your friends had convinced you to explore so long ago, the seasons had changed, all the way from fall to winter, the sun just having started to set as you stumbled to the nearest house, getting as far as asking them to call the police before you collapsed. Your parents had came rushing to the hospital, only allowed to see you after the police were done with their questioning. You had blamed the whole incident on kidnappers, claiming you remembered little of your time there, only that you had been kept in a small underground room where they forced you to take a bunch of odd tests, rewarding you when you completed them, and shocking you when they didn't. You had never been very good at lying, and it was a miracle that they believed you at all. But your disheveled appearance and odd clothing have helped your story. You just had to hope. Them two were big fans of manga and happened to recognize your story. After that, your parents were determined to get you back to normal life, and you were right there with them. School became your biggest priority, trying to catch up with everything that you had missed in order to avoid being held back another year. You drove into your work with reckless abandon, being the only thing that was able to make you forget about what happened. Your parents still worked in their own lives, and your friends from before seemed content to ignore you, as if it would make them feel any less guilty for what they had done. They hadn't even reported anything to the police, just allowed them to think that you were another runaway. Regardless, you studied every moment you could. using equations and English problems to fill the void, fear, that had created. This was the first break from it all, nearing the start of fall and putting you on edge as the date of your disappearance grew near. Your mother could sense your tension, and when your uncle had announced his wedding, she saw it as a perfect opportunity to get you out of the house again. When she had first told you, you had flat out refused, never wanting to go near another shrine or temple in your life. But this is where she had put her foot down, arguing that your uncle had been there more than any more else in this family for you, and had even helped pay for private tutors to help you get caught back up in school when you first came back. And so, with heavy hands and an overwhelming sense of dread, you allowed her to dress you in a light amber kimono with red and white embellishes of flowing trees decorated the hem of the sleeves to match the season. And at that last second, she had tucked the protection charm into your belt, assuring you that she had gotten it from a very powerful priest. It says priestess, but I would prefer priest. Sorry. That morning, your uncle greeted you at the door, expressing how excitement he was that you could make it for his big day. Of course, you smiled back, going your best convincing him to excitement rather than anxiety. I wouldn't miss my favorite uncle's wedding. I'm your only uncle, he scoffed. Tomato. I'm just excited to see you dance tonight. At your words, his cheeks turned a bright pink as a running joke in the family of how bad he was at dancing. And you had always said he would be in trouble when the time come, though he always claimed he would be fine. Quickly changing the subject, he ushered you all inside to your seats. The ceremony itself was nice enough, very traditional as your uncle always was, and the bride was beautiful, but you couldn't help it when you found yourself nodding off. The night before, you had slept it all the nerves keeping you awake and worried, only able to see burning yellow eyes staring at you from the darkness. Now, feeling safe in a room full of your family, your mind was finally giving up. And so, when your chin dropped down to your chest, you allow your eyes to slide shut, basking in the moment of peace that you had absent from your life for months. You don't know if you actually fell asleep or remained in a spoggy space of limbo between sleep and the conscious world. But when you do awake, it was the sound of screams. They barely recognize in your ears before you feel yourself being shoved towards, hands barely catching you in time to prevent your face from smashing to the floor. Hello, this is part 2. Go to my channel to see part 1 or part 3 if you're curious on where it is. I hope you guys enjoyed this.